So what I mean by easy to organise is it needs to be able to be carried around in something so that the child has one place to put everything and doesn't lose anything. So what more might we need? We might need a keyboard. We might need something that has text prediction, some software that has text prediction on it. It needs to have some form of case, and it needs to have something to put everything in, and maybe some more software to help with the handwriting practice. So if we look at this screen, you can see now, yes, we've got the software. Could be something like iWordQ, Clicker Writer, or Read and Write. Could be we want the writing wizard to be able to practice the handwriting. That's a really good app. It's only about $10, but there's heaps of handwriting apps. We might want a pen, handwriting pen that works on a device. Just the cheap rubber ones are fine. You can get an Apple Pencil, but they're very expensive, and especially for young kids, you probably don't want them. Just the cheap ones are fine. Usually the ministry will pay for the first pen, but they don't tend to give them out unless it's a specific type that you want, especially the cheaper ones because they're so cheap to just trial anyway. A Bluetooth keyboard so that they can practice their keyboard. And a lot of the time now, if you're getting an iPad, you can get cases with inbuilt keyboards, which are really good because they're more sturdy then. Obviously we need a case for them, and then a carry case to put everything in as well. So now they've got everything. You can see just how much you can't just get an iPad and that's going to help for everything. So you need to think about the software, any extras. And one thing that's actually missing from here are headphones. And I found that basically, all the ones that I've done so far have needed headphones because in the classroom it gets so noisy, and a lot of the time these children may struggle to pronounce the words that they're saying as well. And if you've got background noise, sometimes the iPad or the Chromebook doesn't pick it up so well, and so it's really useful to trial either plug-in or Bluetooth headphones that have either a microphone that comes around here or one built in. Usually the ones that come around are great. You can get a pair I've just trialed that little microphone you can take on and off, which is super handy as well because then they don't have to have that piece all the time that sits around their mouth. But yeah, so headphones are really good as well because again, sometimes they can't hear the text to speech. If the classroom's too noisy, they'd have to go off somewhere quiet. So having the headset is great, and great for concentration for them as well. So this is a set worksheet, and there's a link to it just here. I'll provide the PowerPoint as well. So this is just a worksheet you can fill out as an example. And there's also another planning type sheet as well that I've not included there, but I can show you. Just with questions to think about before you start your application. It's just another way to think about the application before you start it. And once you've done a few, you don't necessarily need to do this so much, but it is quite good to sit down with at least the teacher to go through some of these things. So that's again another planning sheet you can use to help with your application. And then with noise cancelling, so a lot of the time kids will want to trial noise cancelling headphones, or you might think it's useful to trial them. But noise cancelling headphones, they tend to work best for an environment where there is only one noise, so on an aeroplane. Whereas when you're in a classroom and there's lots and lots of noises happening, they don't work so well because they can't pick up all the different noises. And so sometimes if it's just for noise cancelling, it's better to just get them ear defenders, or there are certain types of headphones that are slightly better, and they kind of record what's happening and invert it so it dims the signal, but they can be a bit more expensive. So just be aware that there's different types of noise cancelling headphones, and some work better than others for the classroom. So completing an application, here are your steps. Decide what assistive tech is best for the child and decide what you would like to trial. So you can use the set or the other form I showed you. Contact DI for any companies that you need the tech from to trial. And you might need login details for. So if you're trialing Read and Write, they need to set you up and give you a login for that for the child. And obviously if you're trialing a Chromebook, you need to go and you need to email Di and ask her for a trial one, and any other accessories as well she can give you to trial. The good thing about trialing from the ministry is if it's accepted, the application, then the child gets to just keep the things they've been trialing. So you don't need to bother getting quotes from Noel Leeming and buying it, etc., etc. It just stays with them from the Ministry of Education. Yeah, I've got Di's contact details at the end of this as well. So then you need to read through the form with the class teacher and decide on 2 or 3 goals, and then gather your pre-data based on these goals and begin the trial, and then gather your post-data at the end of the trial, and we'll talk through that soon. Obviously you need to complete the application form, gather all your signatures, and if it's your first or second trial, you need to have your application peer reviewed by another person that's already completed 3 or more applications. And then you need to send it off to Di, or if you're somebody not in my cluster watching this, send it off to your ministry person that deals with assistive tech applications. So this is the assistive tech application form, and this is the link to the form. And it's always best to get the form from the link and from the website, because the forms change quite often. And so always go to the website and download the form from there. I've made that mistake before and put the wrong one in. So yeah, make sure you go to the website. So this everything I'm going to be talking about is based off of the most recent form as of September 2022. So it may have changed, but they're all slightly similar. So I thought we'd have a look at an example. So this is an example of a child that I've worked with, and they were a Year 5-6 student, and they struggled with reading and writing throughout primary school, and it began to impact his self-esteem. He had many different interventions, and none of them were helping, or they were somewhat helping, but not enough to bridge that gap. And he's also been referred to 3D for possible attention issues. So you can see in his writing, he's struggling with capitals, he's struggling with spelling, he's struggling with his punctuation, paragraphing, with his sentence structure. It's just a big struggle. And this was his pre-trial data that I gathered. And this here was his post-trial data. So it's the same student. You can just see that because he's being able to use read and write and the text prediction and the editing tools, just the difference. Seeds come in all types. They grow at different rates, and some grow up and some grow dangly like vines. So it's such a difference from at my dad's. I don't even know what it is. I got a big block of chocolate, I think it's supposed to say. So it's just, you can see the difference that it can make, the technology. It's amazing, really. So this is the eligibility. This is what I was talking about before. So it's either they're this, or you need to tick that they're getting that extra support. And then for starters, you need to describe in 8 lines, and you need to stick to the limit. This is very important. You have to stick to the limit. You cannot go over. So you need to be very concise in everything you write for the whole application. It has to be very concise. So you need to stick to the 8-line limit and just indicate the key issues. So for this one, I've said this child has extremely low literacy levels, level 1A on ESTL, along with low phonological awareness. He can currently only spell CV and CVC words consistently. His working memory is very poor, and he struggles to hold more than 2 chunks of information at a time. During observations in the classroom and one-to-one testing, he showed a very short attention span. There is a family history of ADHD, and Hayes is currently on the waiting list for 3D to look into this further. Hayes has regular one-to-one time with the teacher, and currently, without TA support, needs extra support from the teacher for all academic work. Hayes is without AT support, so without the assistive technology, he needs extra support from the teacher for all of his academic work. Hayes is still mostly engaged in the lessons and wanting to learn. However, the teacher is worried without extra support, such as assistive technology, that he would become disengaged from learning. And I could see that he was really struggling. The teacher was having to put in so much extra effort to help him even manage to write a few sentences. And by the time we finished this application, he was buzzing. He was sharing his Chromebook and the things that it did with his buddies, because he could see the difference it made with him. and he was engaged in his learning, and he went off and did his work without much intervention needed. It was amazing to see the difference it could make. So they need to put what curriculum level they're working at, and if you're expecting them to change schools. So generally it's better to do this if they're not about to change school. Question 4, it talks about whether your school already has bring your own devices, because if a school has one-to-one devices that are suitable for use, you can't apply for the hardware for those devices. But if they have one-to-one devices, say it's Chromebooks, and they need the software, so they need the read and write, or they need the clicker writer, you can trial that software and you can still apply for the software. You just can't apply for the hardware, the Chromebook, etc. But yeah, in this case, the school had Chromebooks, but they only had 5 to 30 students. So in that case, we could apply for a one-to-one device because they were nowhere near one-to-one devices. Oops. And again, yeah, if the device the school's using is unsuitable, so they've got Chromebooks, but the child needs an iPad, again, you can apply for that. 3, it talks about, so this is just asking what the technology is in the school already, how often they get to use it, what they use it for. So in this case, they had minimal devices, so they couldn't use them that often, and although the teacher tried to allow them to use it as often as she'd like, there wasn't enough support within those devices. And then for question 5, this is the really important part where you're describing the additional support the child is getting. So how many hours per week of additional adult one-to-one support is provided? So I'd said here 30 minutes per day of one-to-one TA time plus at least 20 minutes per day of one-to-one teacher time. And then in the hours of week of small group, it's 30 minutes a day of small group teacher 8 explicit program time. And so that covered between the two of them, the 2 hours of one-to-one or the 4 hours of group. So it kind of covered it with a bit of both there. So what learning areas are targeted? In this case, it was literacy and a bit of mathematics. And who provides the support to the teacher aid and the teacher? And then any other relevant. So now you have to choose the goals, which I'll go into them in a little bit more detail, but you choose the goals. There's a big list at the bottom of the application form for you to choose the goals from, which we'll look at in the next slide. And so you choose those 2 goals, and then that's what you base your pre and your post data off. So in this case, we chose to increase the quantity of work produced within a specific time span and to increase independence in producing written work. These are just asking if they already have devices. So if there's already one-to-one device in the school and you're just applying for software,